Mas, what if the most dangerous part of moldy food is the part you cannot see? Most people think, just cut the mold off and move on. But some molds can produce toxic substances called mycotoxins, and when they contaminate food, the risk may go far beyond an upset stomach. This is not always ordinary food poisoning. Sometimes the warning signs are subtle, sometimes they are alarming, and sometimes people do not even realize their food was the problem. So, in this video, I am going to show you what mycotoxin poisoning symptoms can look like, which foods raise the biggest concern, and when mold-contaminated food is just unpleasant versus when it may actually be dangerous. Before you eat around that moldy spot again, watch this. The first thing we need to clear up is this. Mycotoxins are not the same thing as ordinary food poisoning, and they are not the same as simply seeing a little mold on food and assuming the worst. Mycotoxins are toxic chemicals made by certain molds. Not every mold makes them, and not every moldy food means a person has been poisoned. But the risk is real enough that it deserves respect because these toxins can contaminate food before harvest, after harvest, or during storage, especially in warm and humid conditions. And one of the reasons this topic matters so much is that many mycotoxins are chemically stable, so they can survive food processing. So when people ask, could mold-contaminated food actually make me sick? The honest answer is yes, it can. But the story is more nuanced than social media makes it sound. This is not a horror movie where every old piece of bread becomes a lethal weapon. The bigger concern is with certain foods and certain toxins that public health agencies actually monitor. Aflatoxins, deoxynivalenol, fuminicins, patulin, ochratoxin A, T2 and HT2 toxins, and zearalenone. In other words, this is a real food safety issue, not internet folklore. Now let's make this practical. The foods that raise the most concern are not random. We are talking about things like grains, nuts, spices, dried fruits, apples, coffee beans, corn, rice, wheat, oats, barley, grapes, and some apple products. The FDA notes that peanuts, corn, pistachios, Brazil nuts, and some small grains are especially susceptible to aflatoxins. Patulin is the classic concern in apples and apple juice. Ochratoxin A has been found in grains, coffee, grapes, and wine. So this is less about the dramatic-looking fuzzy sandwich in the back of your fridge and more about the quiet food chain, where contamination can happen in crops and storage long before the food reaches your kitchen. And that is what makes mycotoxins so unsettling. They are often not obvious. People like visible danger, because visible danger feels negotiable. You can point at it, you can cut around it, you can tell yourself you beat it. Mycotoxins do not play that game. They may be present even when the problem is not screaming for attention. That is why regulators monitor foods for them, and why prevention matters much more than trying to rescue contaminated food after the fact. The FDA even says that, as an individual consumer, you generally cannot control whether mycotoxins were present during crop production or storage, which is why monitoring at the food system level matters. So what do symptoms look like? This is where people often want one neat checklist. Reality is messier because different mycotoxins can affect the body in different ways. But in general, acute mycotoxin exposure from food often hits the gastrointestinal tract first. Nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, abdominal pain, dizziness, headache, and a general feeling that something is very wrong can all happen. WHO notes that some food-borne mycotoxins can cause severe illness fairly quickly after consumption, while other exposures are more about long-term damage rather than sudden dramatic symptoms. Cleveland Clinic also notes that symptoms can range from abdominal pain, diarrhea, nausea, vomiting, headache, and dizziness, to much more serious complications in severe cases. That second part is important. Not every dangerous exposure announces itself with fireworks. Some mycotoxins are feared because of what repeated exposure may do over time. WHO says the health effects range from acute poisoning to long-term consequences such as immune deficiency and cancer. That means the question is not only, will I get sick tonight? Sometimes the more important question is, what does repeated contamination do over months or years? That is one reason aflatoxins get so much attention globally. Let's walk through a few of the major players, because this is where the picture gets much clearer. Aflatoxins are probably the best-known mycotoxins. They are produced by certain Aspergillus molds. The FDA says that regularly eating foods with aflatoxins can increase the risk of liver cancer and can also cause birth defects, plus kidney and immune system problems. Eating a large amount over a short period or over several days can lead to liver failure and even death. So when toxicologists and food safety experts get serious about mold toxins, aflatoxin is one of the names that stands up first and says, this is why you should care. Then there is deoxynivalenol, often called DEON, or even vomitoxin, which already tells you something about its reputation. The FDA says it is produced by certain fusarium molds and can contaminate wheat, corn, oats, barley, and other grains, especially in cool, wet conditions. High levels can cause vomiting, nausea, and other symptoms. So if aflatoxin is the liver villain in this story, DEON is the toxin with the very on-the-nose name that reminds us how quickly contaminated food can hit the stomach and gut. Patulin is another good example, because it helps people connect the topic to everyday foods. Patulin can be produced by molds that grow on fruit, grains, and cheese. But the best-known example is in juice or cider made from apples. The FDA specifically warns that the risk goes up when moldy apples are used for juice, and that pasteurization does not get rid of patulin. Contaminated apple juice can cause nausea and vomiting. So this is not just a do not eat the moldy apple problem. It is also a reminder that contaminated ingredients can carry risk into processed products. Other toxins matter too, even when the human data are less complete. Ochratoxin A has been found in contaminated grains, coffee, grapes, and wine, and the FDA notes kidney damage in animals, plus a possible cancer concern in humans. T2 and HT2 toxins have been associated with high fever, gastrointestinal symptoms, and hemorrhage in humans. Zearalenone may cause reproductive problems. Fuminicins clearly cause significant disease in animals, while the exact impact in humans still needs more research. That uncertainty does not make the risk imaginary. It just means science is careful about where the evidence is strong and where it is still being mapped. Now, this is also where I want to separate mycotoxins in food from the broader online conversation about mold exposure in buildings. People often mix those together into one giant cloud of fear. There is overlap in terminology, but today we are talking about contaminated food. We are talking about what happens when toxin-producing molds get into crops, stored foods, or products made from contaminated ingredients. That distinction matters because otherwise the conversation becomes so blurry that nobody learns anything useful. So let's tackle one of the biggest myths. Can you just cut off the moldy part and eat the rest? Sometimes people say this with the confidence of a pirate surgeon, but the truth depends heavily on the food. The USDA says that for hard cheese, you can cut off at least 1 inch around and below the mold spot. But the USDA also says soft cheese showing mold should be discarded. That exception for hard cheese is not a free pass to start performing kitchen archaeology on everything in your fridge. For foods like moldy grains, nuts, or dried fruits, your own published medical toxic piece takes the safer line. If they look moldy, discolored, or shriveled, throw them away. That is the wiser instinct. And here is the deeper reason. The visible mold is often just the flag on top of the castle. The structure underneath may extend further than you think. Chu notes that mycotoxins can contaminate food before and after harvest, and your medical toxic article emphasizes that contamination is not necessarily limited to the visible surface. So the question is not just, can I see mold? The real question is, can I guarantee the dangerous part is only what I can see? In many foods, especially soft or porous foods, that is not a gamble worth taking. The next myth is just as common. Cooking will kill it. That sounds comforting. It also sounds like the sort of sentence people say right before making a bad decision. WHO states that most mycotoxins are chemically stable and survive food processing. Your medical toxic blog says the same thing in plain language. Many are heat stable and can remain even after cooking or processing. The FDA adds a very concrete example by saying pasteurization will not remove patulin from contaminated apple juice. So heat is not a magic eraser here. In some situations, processing can reduce contamination, but it does not reliably turn a risky food into a safe food. Now, I do not want to turn this into pure fear, because that is not useful either. The message is not be terrified of food. The message is understand where the real risk lives. Public health systems know these toxins matter. The FDA monitors them. International bodies like WHO and JECFA evaluate their health risks. Codex standards exist to help reduce exposure. That should reassure you that this is a recognized problem with real science behind it, not a random internet obsession. But it should also remind you that the right response is smart caution, not magical thinking. So, what should you do if you think you ate food that may be contaminated? First, do not keep eating it just because you already started. Second, do not try home remedies or force vomiting. Poison Help specifically says that if a poison has been swallowed, you should not try home remedies or try to make someone throw up. If someone has collapsed, had a seizure, is having trouble breathing, or cannot be awakened, call 911 immediately. And in the United States, Poison Help says you can call 1-800-2222-12222 for fast, free, and confidential poison help 24 hours a day. If symptoms start, take them seriously. The kinds of symptoms that should push you toward urgent medical evaluation include persistent vomiting, severe diarrhea, significant abdominal pain, confusion, neurological changes, trouble breathing, or signs that suggest liver injury, such as jaundice. Not every contaminated food exposure becomes a crisis, but severe poisonings can happen. And aflatoxins in particular have been associated with liver failure in high-dose exposure. This is one of those moments where "I'll just wait and see forever" is not a great life strategy. There is also a quieter danger zone that deserves respect: repeated low-level exposure. This is not the dramatic story that goes viral. It is the slow burn story. WHO notes long-term effects such as immune deficiency and cancer, and the FDA specifically links ongoing aflatoxin exposure with increased liver cancer risk. That is why food safety experts care so much about prevention, storage, regulation, and monitoring. The danger is not always a single bite that sends someone to the emergency department. Sometimes it is the steady drip of contamination that nobody noticed. So how do you lower your risk in real life? Start simple. Inspect foods that are more vulnerable to mold contamination. Be cautious with grains, nuts, dried fruits, spices, coffee, corn products, and fruit products, especially apples and apple juice. Throw away foods that look moldy, discolored, damaged, or shriveled rather than trying to negotiate with them. Your medical toxic article also recommends dry, cool, airtight storage and varying the diet to reduce reliance on any one potentially contaminated staple. Those are not glamorous tricks, but they are practical. Food safety is often boring right up until the day it is not. And for anyone thinking, "But I hate wasting food," that feeling is understandable. Nobody likes throwing food away. But there is a difference between frugality and wishful thinking. Hard cheese with a small mold spot is one thing, and the USDA gives a specific rule for that. Moldy nuts, suspicious dried fruit, contaminated grains, or juice made from rotten apples are a different story. Saving money is good. Turning your kitchen into a casino is less elegant. One more important point: not all mold is villainous. Some cheeses are intentionally made with safe molds, and that is a completely different situation from unwanted mold growth on ordinary food. So the message here is not all mold equals poison. The message is certain molds can produce dangerous toxins in certain foods, and the context matters. That is the kind of nuance that keeps people safe without turning them into food paranoiacs. So here is the bottom line. Mycotoxins are real. They matter. They are produced by certain molds. They can contaminate common foods, and some of them can cause acute illness while others are linked to serious long-term harm, including immune effects and cancer. The biggest practical takeaways are simple. Do not treat all moldy food as salvageable. Do not assume heat makes it safe, and do not ignore significant symptoms after a suspicious exposure. When in doubt, caution beats confidence. And when symptoms are severe or the exposure is concerning, get expert help. And that is exactly why this topic deserves more attention than it usually gets. Because the most dangerous part of moldy food is not always the fuzzy patch you can see. Sometimes it is the invisible chemistry hiding behind it. Thanks for watching the Medical Toxicology channel. Subscribe for more practical toxicology videos. Take care.